Love it. Yeah.
You're snaking.
Huh? Hello.
Hello, Even.
How are you doing?
I'm all right, love. How are you?
Yeah, well, everything is okay.
Yeah.
Alive and kicking.
Yeah, good. This is like we're actually seeing all each other, which is so nice.
No, I was like dropping into everyone's classes because I was like, I want to see everyone.
No, that was my intention also, but it's not happened. I was like, right, I'm going to take class this morning, so I will take it afterwards.
Oh yeah, sure, because you get everything in anyways, don't you?
I think so.
Are you in a studio there then?
Yeah, I'm at home. Our place.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
No. I mean, otherwise nothing would be happening. But yeah.
That's amazing. That works out well.
It does for now. I mean, and let's hope we can get back quickly, because otherwise,
It's getting very lonely.
we're renting a building that no one's using.
Oh, yeah, that as well.
So yeah, I'm making the most in one.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad it's being used.
We'll just see what happens.
Yeah.
Are you all right?
How was your class, Adele?
Hello, guys. How are you doing?
How was your class?
Yeah, it was good, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good fun. It was really good fun. How are you?
Okay, thank
How's
you.
everything over there? You doing all right?
Well, I'm actually in London at the moment.
Oh, amazing. Okay, you're home safe and sound.
Yeah, I'm home, and I have been for a little while now. I came when it before they closed everything up in New York.
Yep. Thought that was best.
Yeah, a bit sad, but
That's good.
Yeah, how have you found this time? You're in your house, aren't you?
Mix.
Last time I saw you moved into a like it was already.
Yeah. It's been a year and a bit now that we've been in.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
It basically, if you stand still for too long, I'll paint you. Is basically what it is, because we just keep painting anything. The living room has changed colour many of times, so there's not much else to do. Yeah, it's okay. It's just like mentally strange, isn't it? I think, but I think like overcoming that, it's all becoming.
And then you were just about to go.
Yes, I was. Yeah, they tried to get me out a little earlier, but I said if I get stuck in New York, God knows when I was going to be home. So thank goodness.
Weren't you, first,
Yeah, thank goodness they cancelled it when they did, really.
Yeah.
Because I think being cooped up over there would be very weird.
Yeah.
Where were you staying, Adele?
I was in an apartment just off of Central Park, so I had a place. Yeah, just had a place there. But we were traveling to sort of Boston, Chicago, Detroit, LA. So there would have been a lot of traveling as well. So with none of that would have been able to happen. So it's just been postponed for next year.
Okay, great. When do they think they're going to start that next year?
It's all booked in for the opening night. Is April the 16th. So they're all planning it to happen.
Yeah.
Sort of March, April time. So we'll just have to see.
Supposed to be, right?
Pardon?
Similar to what it was supposed to be.
Yeah. So they've just been able to just move it along, which is nice. It's good. Yeah. But how was New York? Was it nice? Did you enjoy your time there?
Yeah, it was great, and it was just getting started, and then it stopped. I was meant to go to Chicago as well to do a show, and then some other places. It was a shame for that not to happen, and obviously my visa, there's a time limit, so
okay.
Yeah, but hopefully everything that was in has been postponed to 2021 or 22. So
amazing.
Again, hoping that it's just the theatres and how they're doing, and we just don't know, do we?
I have no idea. At least it's postponed, though. I think that's the best word that can be used at the moment, rather than like completely cancelled or thrown away. Like they've still got it there just in case.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because everything was just about to start now, like summer-wise.
Yeah.
Just about.
Oh, look at all these people. Hi, Alistair.
Hiya, how you doing?
Hi.
Hello, Ali.
Hey, how are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad.
You sweaty? Have you just taught?
I had to have a shower and change my t-shirt. True story. I watched it back just to make sure that it all recorded all right, obviously, because we're putting the option for people to have the class afterwards. And I looked back and I thought, why did I wear a grey t-shirt? It's literally it's so unflattering.
It's getting darker and darker as the session goes on.
Shape sweat down my back. But
I think it's funny when people like get heart shapes.
yeah.
You know, it's
I
great.
got one here, a little heart.
Or a little belly button one.
Yeah.
Was class good?
Yes. Yeah. It was great actually. Yeah. I had no idea how many people were expecting or anything, but this is the first time I've actually taught live since lockdown started. I've done pre-records, but I've kind of, I don't know, I'd been a little sketchy whether it would translate over live, but yeah, today was a good day to get involved with it. So, and actually it was pretty painless. One little audio thing where I was trying to play music and tap dance at the same time, which is a little tricky, but yeah, no, other than that, it was all good. You were in there, weren't you? Were you in there?
Me?
Yes,
No,
you.
no, I wasn't. I've not done any class today.
Ah, sorry. I thought
Must
someone
be doppelganger.
Instagrammed something potentially from this.
Oh, it could have been. It could have. I might have done. I might have been like, yeah, on. I don't know.
Love that.
I just feel I'm a bit like, you're just like reposting and then reposting reposts, like
That's
you know,
good.
like, a bit like. Zzz.
We love it. We love all the posts.
Good. Yeah.
About that.
Adele, I know
Anyone else that's on the call?
Yeah, hi to people joining.
Sorry, we're just having a catch up.
Adele, I know you've taught already. Kirsty, have you taught as well, or are you later?
We are 3:30.
Nice.
Yeah. Good.
You'll be teaching together, right?
Yeah. Well, I can't actually tap in my house, so Harriet's doing the tapping, I'm doing the styling. And
I like.
there. So we're a duo today.
It ticks all the camera angles as well. I saw in like the TDUK thing yesterday.
Yeah.
Like had top half of Kirsty and then bottom half of Harry. I was like, this is great.
I know, but like, can we put it to like a two? Yeah, then yeah. I know the play on that thing is so.
Yeah, it's really
it's,
hard.
it's so stupid. But I don't think we don't have the same problems quite with Zoom.
No.
No.
So it's like, but yeah, it was just like I'm doing one thing and then it sounds like something else, and
Yeah.
It's a real brain teaser for everyone to go, this is the rhythm. I sense it probably fits there. Okay.
Yeah, actually, it's just another challenge and a learning curve. We can take it as that.
yeah. Work it. Who knows?
Hello, everyone.
Oh, hi.
Basically, Centre Pack has taken over this this chat.
Oh my God. In other non-related tap news, one of the biggest thunderstorms I've ever seen has just happened, where, I mean, it's literally, oh my God, is it hail?
Actually,
I want to show you, I want to see if you can see. Oh, tripping over. I don't know. Yeah, I know it's not going to translate on Zoom, but it is biblical out there. And it's come from absolutely nowhere. Sorry, not very interesting, but it's absolutely chucking it down. No, I tripped over a cable. That's right.
Is it warm in there, Ali?
Yeah, it's a full-on like US thunderstorm, I guess. We just don't normally get them here. Sorry, not related. Just filling the time until we get to 2 p.m.
It's warm wind, isn't it? It's like tropical thing.
Hello, Jen.
Hey guys.
Hi.
Hey.
Look at that hair.
I feel like a cotton candy.
You're like a mermaid.
Thanks. Oh, my light's going to be funny, isn't it?
No, you're right, Jen.
Hey, all good. We've got some people also just being really cool and watching the chat just so you know. Welcome, everyone. We're still 1 minute away.
I need to do something.
So we'll just hang out for one more moment to see if anyone else joins us.
You're the host now, Jen.
Awesome. That's my job. Ali, whereabouts are you?
As in my lounge or in the world?
No, you were just showing us the storm.
Oh.
I was here, by the way. I could hear and see you all. I just was
East
sitting
London.
here quietly without the camera on.
I'm in
But-
East London at the moment, in our flat near Stratford. So
Okay, a bit further east and north than us, because we've got gorgeous sunshine here, but we can't be that far away from you.
no, not at all. Yeah, you're just south, aren't you? So, Sarah, where's Sarah? North London.
All right, it's 2 o'clock, everyone. So should we get started?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome sauce. Thank you so much to everyone who is joining us this afternoon. We're very excited to have this panel. My name is Jenny Rust. I'm the Managing Director of Tap Dance UK, for those of you who don't know me. And with me today, I have Harriet Spence and Kirsty Fuller of Theatre Tap London. Hi. Alistair Crosswell and Adele Joel. The panel's going to be about an hour, so you should have time for to get ready if you're taking class as well this afternoon. And if you do have any questions, I'm not sure if we'll have time to get to them at the end, but if you want to type them in the chat box rather than unmute yourself, if we've got some time, I can ask the panelists your questions later. Great stuff. So in this panel, we're going to be discussing the roots of tap dance in American jazz music, the golden age of Hollywood movies and musical theatre, all bundled up into one. So I'm going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves now. Harriet, can we start with you?
Cool. Just a quick overview.
Quick overview. Tell us about your work.
Right. So I'm currently in Lincolnshire. That's where I live. And I do a lot of different things. I'm a dancer, trained in a variety of different styles, and grew up with a mum who was a ballroom dancer. So always did a bit of everything. Tap dance was the thing that I found and wanted to, I guess, felt compelled to do and follow. I now kind of co-run our studios here. Up here, I also teach with Kirsty, or when we're in the same country, we set up our Theatre Tap London classes together to teach at Pineapple Studios initially. Just kind of moving into different grounds at the moment, of course. I'm on faculty at Leeds College of Music for their musical theatre degree programme for TAP. And yeah, I was also supposed to be working on a project at the moment with funded by Opera North, working with some Indian classical musicians, which is obviously a little bit on hold, but kind of exciting to do some original composition stuff too. So I guess I teach a lot of different levels. I see a lot of different kind of types of people, and so yeah, teach professionals to training professionals to kids to adults. So sort of see a full spectrum of things, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now without delving into too much like
history. Awesome. And the other half of Theatre Tap London, Kirsty, can you give us a little bit of background about your work as well, please?
Hi everyone, thank you for coming in. So I'm Kirsty Fuller. I currently am in London on this lovely time that we're in, but I had actually moved to New York on my performing visa. My background's in musical theatre. I actually, just as a side note, I stopped dancing at 18 and never thought I'd do it again, and then picked it back up about 6 years later. And tap dance was the first, and I didn't really dance at all for a long time. Tap dance was the first thing the shoes I first put on, and I couldn't deny that I needed to dance again. So, and then it's just got back into training, and then I've worked professionally on cruise ships around the UK, in the West End in 42nd Street as swing and first cover Anytime Annie. And like I said, will be living in New York. I was about to start some jobs out there, which obviously got cancelled, but we're just saying they're being postponed for next year. So yeah, and I guess, is that enough, Jenny, for me?
That's great.
I'm sure you'll probably hear more about us.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
All right, Adele, do you want to tell us a little bit about your work?
Of course. Hello, my name is Adele Joel. I am a tap dancer, and I'm proud to be a tap dancer. I work a lot with jazz musicians and jazz bands. I would say that's sort of primarily where I am in the jazz circuit. I am a member of Old Kent Road, so I perform with them, and I have been a member of a couple of companies over in New York, one of them being Andrew Namer's company, Cats Paying Dues, and I did his 10th anniversary show, which was 5 years ago now, which is crazy. Also, plans have been changed for me as well. Currently meant to be in New York in a new show with Derek Grant, Dorbisha and Jason Samuel Smith, but it has all been postponed. So that was going to be this year's adventure and new task, a new challenge. Yeah, it's a little bit about me.
Great stuff. And last but no least, our token male, because we do love gender diversity on panels. Just kidding, Ali. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Ali Alistair, not fussy. I trained in musical theatre first, tap dance from a young age, trained in musical theatre, but I feel like I work both in musical theatre and in straight tap stuff. So musical theatre stuff, if it wasn't for lockdown, obviously, you've heard from the other guys, we've all been affected, obviously, by lockdown. That's why we're all on a Zoom together. But I would have been doing Meet Me in St. Louis at Grange Park Opera at the moment, and I would be about to start rehearsals for Singing in the Rain, which was coming back to Sadler's and a UK and international tour. But obviously don't quite know what's happening with all of that. But yeah, I worked in the West End as well, same as Kirsty. I did Charlie and Chocolate Factory, and done, yeah, Gypsy and Jersey Boys and lots of big old cheesy music.
All right.
Hey, I'm also, as you can tell from her taking a mick out of me already, I'm also in the tap company Old Kent Road with Adele, so we know each other pretty well. But yeah, so I do perform straight tap stuff as well, which it's my main passion. But there's a lot of work in musical theatre, so I kind of straddle both camps.
That's a great point, and we will touch on that later. But first, I would like to ask you all about your style, because as we've heard, everyone works in slightly different areas. Some of you guys cross over. So if you could describe your style and also where you draw your inspiration from. I'm going to start back with you again, Ali, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. So some of my inspirations when I was growing up, Fred Astaire was the OG for me. That's where I started from in terms of learning and stuff. It took me a little longer to discover a lot of the amazing rhythm tap guys that I love now. Fred Astaire, I guess, because he's more mainstream. I grew up watching those films, and he's still a huge influence for me. And then I think it was a Junior Lanyon workshop when I was about 14. He went around the room and asked everyone's favorite tap dancers, and suddenly I started hearing all of these, like Nicholas Brothers, Sammy Davis Jr. I won't list them all, but they would be my picks in terms of influence. Nicholas Brothers for their sort of panache and their flair, and Sammy because he could do everything. If you're looking for a triple threat, he could sing, he could dance, he could act. So they're my main inspirations. Also, another random male inspiration, Mikhail Baryshnikov as well. I used to be obsessed with, ballet dancer. He's absolutely incredible. So yeah, if you've got a spare 2 minutes, look up him doing Don Quixote and it'll blow your mind. Yeah, in terms of my style, I don't know. I was never the like bendy kid. I guess I really had to work for flexibility. So I'm sort of the small, compact guy. So any dynamic stuff suits me. I love jumping and turning and stuff like that. So that's probably my style, energetic and dynamic, I guess. And in terms of tap, I love swing stuff. So any big band jazz stuff and swing rhythms sit better with me than, excuse me, than more of the funk straight 16th stuff for me.
Great stuff. And obviously Mikhail Baryshnikov and Gregory Hines in
White Nights.
White Nights.
Yeah, check it out. What a film.
Everyone. Of course. All right, great. Kirsty, can you tell us about your style and your inspirations, please?
Yeah, I think pretty much the same as Ali in terms of the Hollywood kind of movie musicals, the MGM. I kind of grew up with them, like just watching them when I was younger. And just the elegance, I just love watching them glide and just, and so Eleanor Powell, huge inspiration in terms of her like fierceness, but just how she can do everything else. She just kicks her leg up wipes her foot and then brings it back down, and then just does this fierce tapping. And but I think in my journey, as I said, like musical theatre was my background, and something I've just been learning over the years is how important the roots of tap dancing and our art form, and how I'm just learning and I'm just going, oh, that makes sense, oh, that comes from there, and that. So my inspiration is completely, it's like my mind has just gone poof, because of just who you meet and who inspires you, the teachers that you meet, and who inspires inspires you. But a great a mentor of mine would be Randy Skinner in New York, and I just love him. I just think, firstly, I think he's a really lovely guy. I think he's really genuine and really nice to be around, and I really gravitate towards that. But I think he's got so much knowledge, and the people he's worked with, I could be sitting with him for days just talking to him. So in terms of someone that's I really love spending time with and just hearing stories, Randy Skinner would be someone who I love.
Great stuff. All right, Adele, what have you got for us?
Hello, sorry. So something that inspires me at the moment would probably be music. Is a big part, plays a very big role. So that is anything, any kind of music, depending on the mood and how I plan on dancing, is definitely down to the music. Also, Junior Lanham was actually the guy who kind of got me involved with a lot of different names and a whole different world, being sort of brought up ISTD background, a very passionate tap teacher, but not necessarily knowing the history or backgrounds of anything. Finding Junior definitely challenged me and just showed me something very different. Yeah, music's probably a big inspiration for me, and history. I love knowing all the detail of where something has come from, who is famous for that step, what song did they used to dance to. That inspires me a lot, and I think that's why I also really enjoy teaching, because I love to be able to share all these tiny details about one little step, and there's such a big history behind it. And I think it helps the way you dance as well, because and I think it helps you find your style when you are dancing a certain piece of rep or certain steps. And I guess it's just taking class as well and watching how other people move and how other people interpret different routines. Definitely upper body was something that maybe I found over the past 2 years. All of a sudden I've got these sort of Latino arms going on. I think you need to tame them down a little bit. But it feels good, and all of a sudden I feel like I found a style that feels good, as well as attempting to make it sound good. So I think style kind of came with confidence, I guess, as well, and playing around with individual teachers' styles, trying to put them on my body and be like, oh, no thanks, or yes please. It's kind of idea.
Yeah, great stuff. And obviously the intersection of sound and movement and aesthetic is what sets tap dance apart from all of the other forms, and makes it an art in its own right.
Yeah, we're so lucky. Sorry, we are so lucky that we get to make music and dance all at the same time. Like
double expression.
Yeah, we are very lucky to be able to do.
Great, and I just want to pick up on the 2 shout outs we've had to Junior. Those of you who don't know him, he's in Chile now, but he's responsible for founding the London Tap Jam, or co-founding the London Tap Jam, who have been doing some Instagram live jams, and one of Adele's mentors, Andrew Namer, is hosting tomorrow night. Is that right? Yeah, so you can just jump onto the gram, follow London Tap Jam, and they have some really awesome and useful stuff on improv. But before we go off on a tangent, Harriet, please tell us about your style and your inspirations.
I'm really glad I did not get to go first on this. Thanks, Jen. Because I just want to, I just want to say ditto to everything everybody said. Really, I guess it's tricky. I started like Adele, like in regular school. So my mum was my teacher, and I actually found this kind of tap dance and its history and its kind of authenticity when I lived in Germany, and I trained with a guy called Thomas Marek, who had trained in Chicago, was very good friends with Barbara Duffy, who subsequently spent a lot of time training me. So I was then like, whoa, what is this? This feels so great. And one of the first things I did was a workshop with Leila Petronio. So Sarah Petronio's daughter, who's she was Stomp, and she's very and we danced to Latin music, and I was like, oh, okay. So and I grew up actually, my mum being the dancer, my dad just played so many different types of music in the house. So every Saturday night was just like, cool, the jam is on. And that would go from Latin to like Celtic to like reggae to like Afro, like every form of music. So I feel very privileged that I got, though I would say those are really big influences, that diversity. So I've always felt like I've straddled so many different genres because of all of those influences. And I would say that even though that wasn't directly kind of tap dance related, they actually play a big part in kind of my musical education and how I hear music and what I hear. So I want to mention that as a big thing. And also I trained in musical theatre, and I feel a bit like Ali, like I straddle different things. One day I feel like I use my ballroom training and I'm up here, and then the next minute I want to throw it all away and do something else. So I think and also like Ali, I'm small and dynamic and like jumps and moving around, and so the last kind of 5 years for me have been kind of more like discovering Lindy Hop and just being like, oh, this is where I live, this is what feels good. And kind of that link to tap dance for me is just the most interesting thing. So that's kind of where I've been living for the last little while in from a music and dance perspective, actually, I would say. So yeah, Thomas was really was a big influence initially because we jammed, we improvised. I met Brenda Buffalino in that 6 months that I was living there, flipped my world upside down, and that really made a massive difference. And I guess in terms of physical, I don't have a lot of tap kind of memories. I guess Fred Astaire would have been up there, and Gene Kelly would have been up there in terms of seeing things. I wasn't introduced to people like Gregory Hines till much later, until, you know, people like Barbara Duffy sit you down in front of their TV and go, watch this, and, you know, things that you're not necessarily aware of. So I would say watching Gregory as that charismatic character to me is what it's all about. And I love those the entertainers. I love the fact that we've been talking about this recently quite a lot, of how those tap dancers really entertained, and that really interests me. So yeah, a whole mush of a lot of different things, I would say.
Yeah, great. And I love how within the first 10-15 minutes we've gone from jazz and stage and screen, which is already a huge broad bracket. We've started talking about Latin, we've started talking about ballroom. I'm sure if we had some Irish dancers in here, we'd be talking about that. Just the percussion element really draws together so many cultures that have all fed into each other, influenced each other, and it's just brilliant to get involved in all these different ideas and influences and cultures, and we could talk about that forever. You've also all mentioned people who've mentored you and taught you, and I want to lead into our next question here, because of course you all teach tap dancers as performers. That's our bread and butter. It's an oral tradition. I say our, not mine, but it is an oral tradition, and it's really, really important to pass the knowledge that we've gained from the people who've taught us onto the next generation. So I want to link through. Everyone teaches at a high level, teaches at colleges, full-time training. Pineapple, Ali and Kirsty have both performed in West End shows, and everyone has a little bit of a musical theatre influence in one way or another. How do we think the training in the UK prepares students for musical theatre in particular? Are we missing some of the root foundations in our musical theatre training? I'm going to start with Adele. You teach at Mountview?
Yes.
What's your experience with that?
I guess Mountview is a college that is very, very much based on acting and singing, which is something that I definitely found out more when I was there. Their dance is extremely strong. Like their faculty is very, very strong. The guy who runs the dance department is very, very good, very determined to make sure that they all come out with high standard of training. But a lot of them are movers. So you're kind of teaching them to move rather than say, I'm only quoting this because it's just the other college I can think of, say like Bird College, for instance. I feel that is very, very dance orientated. I'm not saying their singing and acting isn't as good, but that seems to be what they spend most of their hours doing. Whereas at Mount View, it's very much based on their singing, maybe learning an instrument and acting. So for me, I have to make sure that they have the foundations down and the basics to be able to maybe get through an audition round of tap dance. So maybe teaching there is a little different to maybe going to Pineapple, where I can completely let rip, and if it's too fast or too slow, I'm like, just have it. This is what I'm giving you today. This is my inspiration. This is the music I want. This is, you know, you can kind of name drop a little bit more, or maybe go into depth of the history or influences of it. Whereas I feel like once I get to a college, I have a criteria, I guess, or like a few boxes I need to tick just to make sure that they're ready for the auditions and the jobs that they are most likely to go for in the short period of time. So just to let you know about Mount View, I actually only teach 6 weeks on, 6 weeks off, 6 weeks on, and that is it. So that is all they would get within a year. So it's, you know, it is a little different to having it even once a week for 3 years. I don't do that. So I guess the criteria is a little different.
Sure. Kirsty, let's come back to you. And you obviously have experience of learning musical theatre choreography. Maybe you can talk to us a little bit about the level of choreography in the UK, maybe versus US, and sort of the standard. Do you think that students are prepared for the level of choreography for West End, or are we not challenging our West End performers as much as our Broadway performers?
I think I would say it's probably also very personal in terms of going into colleges. Even if you have this amazing faculty, it is also dependent on the person and what they get from it and what they do with that. And so that's the tricky thing as well. And I actually never went to a full-time college, and so I had to go and find things for myself, and that's why it made me a bit more independent. And I hope that many people in colleges, and we say it all the time, is don't rely on your college to train you. You are in charge of that. And yes, you've got these teachers and make the most of these teachers, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't spread and see what else is out there too, because one day you're going to come out and then that's not going to be there anymore, and you're open to the wider world. So then so unfortunately in colleges, tap just isn't as important as some other styles. So as Adele said, you get very little time allocated to tap dancing. So that's a little bit of a shame. And I think we notice that in terms of the people that come to us in Pineapple, and we've got such disciplined dancers, but they just hadn't had as much time to focus on their tap, and it's amazing that they are putting that in. But unfortunately, tap still in musical theatre is kind of put down, not as a priority. And I was really shocked, not shocked, but I'm actually really glad that it happened. But like in 42nd Street, in the auditions, they were very clear from the word go that they made everyone tap one at a time a cappella, so they could really see how everyone could tap, rather than can you get away with it and it's okay. And Manny was like, that's not okay. I want to know that my dancers can hold themselves and then also have a style. And so I think that was a huge wake-up call. I'm sure that happened many a times, but just from my experience, and that's what I think I love. And so the question was, difference in does it affect musical theatre? I think it does, but I think the important thing is, and I hope I'm sure we all do it, and it's a big emphasis for us as teachers to try and empower our students and tell everyone that it's our responsibility, and to find that and gain that strength and particularly if it's not given to us as much, then we need to run and find that even more. And I think all of us here have done that in many different ways, and why we love to gravitate to so many different countries to do that, because it's exciting to see different influences and be inspired by different people that we maybe never would have had if they wouldn't come into college.
Yeah, that's great. And I really love the point you made, that not everyone who's on a stage has gone through full-time training. People have got their education from different sources. That's a great point to make. Harriet, could you jump in, maybe just touch on the point that Kirsty was making about your students you see at Pineapple, maybe just tap into the role of improv. Do you use improv in your classes? Do you encourage your students at Go Dance to improv?
Yeah, I was just making notes as everyone was talking, just on what you were just saying about everything. I think the college thing is, there's lots of things going on that make it quite complicated with the relationship with tap dance. I think it's the training is very reflective of the job opportunities. So it's what's up there, what's being created, as to what's necessary. And there's increasing pressure, I suppose, for colleges to provide everything. And now, they used to be very, very different. Now there's bachelor degree programs, and you can go and do a degree. Before, when it was art, and you had to pay tens and tens and tens of thousands out of your own pocket to go to school. So to go to Erdang, to go to wherever it was. And because there's a change, which is obviously for a good reason, right? To be able to fund people to go to art school, yeah, which is extremely important. There's also then a different way that they structure it. So there's the degree program, therefore you've got this kind of level of like bureaucracy that you have to tick certain boxes, blah, 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 blah. All of those things. And so all the colleges feel they've now got to split acting, singing and dancing equally, and they're all sort of competing with one another. Whereas in the past, you'd have certain schools were, and I think they still are by nature, but certain schools were like dance heavy, like Erdang was dance heavy by nature, Bird was dance heavy by nature, Mount View was acting heavy by nature. That's just because the founders of those schools, that was their thought. And so now there's more of this kind of generalist thing. And I think, like Kirsty's saying, go and seek out what really sets someone apart is if they go and seek out beyond that, because actually a lot of colleges are now sort of really having to cover everything, but not necessarily, but in a more kind of general way.
I'm really sorry to interrupt. It just made me suddenly think of something regarding colleges, and then suddenly like broadening, like making sure that they're doing every genre of a really good standard. I think the thing is that I personally sometimes struggle with trying to explain to some colleges is that they expect the same standard in tap as in ballet, but they don't give it as much time as they give to ballet, or the people haven't ever tapped before and they think that they can then suddenly be that level within that year or those 2 years. I just think it's trying to explain to them, we just need a bit longer, or please give us some more time. But because some colleges still put it down as maybe not so high as the others, you're not necessarily given the time. So it's not as broad as we think. It might be on the timetable, but like learning wise, maybe not. Sorry, it just made me.
No, that's exactly there, isn't it? It's like how it appears that they're covering everything, but not. But then you're becoming quite general, and you can do a bit of everything, and you're not kind of creating those masters. And I also feel that you're getting a little bit too much spoon feeding. Those college schedules are hefty. There's no time to just be independent and go and seek out other things. There's no release time. I mean, there is in the holidays period, but it's like, wow, I don't know if that's a thing, but I just that it just reflected this thing. Yeah. Improv wise, you saying about class and yeah, so I mean, tap dance is an oral art form, like oral kind of like passed down so orally, and as a form of music, I feel like improv has to be touched on in some way at every moment that you're in a studio, because it's a form of like freedom of expression, and we try best as possible that there's always an element of that in every class. So even if it's just like call and response, even if it's just brought down just to a very simple, like, let's just get this, whatever, we might have a particular aim that day, but even if it's just a quick call and response, or, turn around, face the wall, I'm going to play something, you play it back. Like there's a level of musical interaction that's really important, that whatever class, I think that needs to be, it's all about the ears, listening and then connecting. So yeah, I personally use it in every class.
Great stuff. And it just feeds into, as we were saying earlier, the fact that tap is an art form that's not really fed by, in some ways, maybe in your upper body, in your performance, but it's less, feeds less into ballet, contemporary jazz, that sort of technique. They all sustain one another, whereas tap is percussion. It's probably more closely related to drumming and hand-eye coordination, etc. Ali,
Can I say something on that, Annie?
Yeah, of course.
I think what would be great is if we can merge all of those together, because how important it is that you bring your, let's say, ballroom into it, you bring your hip hop into it, you bring your things into the, like, the forms come together, because it it is a whole body thing, and I think the way we perceive, some people might think tap dancing is just a thing that you do with your feet, but it's not. It's like your whole self. The rhythm becomes everything in your body, and so your whole body moves as an expression of that. And maybe that's it'd be lovely to see more of that. So translate in classes coming together in that form, because then it's not so isolated, and this is, you just do that. It is so. Everything is interconnected. Me and Harriet in our tap and tea study sessions, we're just connecting with so many people of different styles, and how it's so connected, and how things have changed over times because of how dance has evolved. And so yeah, just wanted to say that.
Yeah, sure, of course. All right, Ali, your thoughts, please. Jump on over onto that hotbed of gossip.
I mean, I think everything's been pretty much covered there very thoroughly. For me, Harriet hit the nail on the head, which is the most important point for me, which is in terms of, if the original question is, are colleges covering enough tap, and are they preparing for the work? They are, in my opinion, preparing students for the work that is there. And the level of teachers in colleges, I think, is brilliant. All three of the other panelists, plus people like Ryan and Jack, you've got teaching regularly, really great rhythm teachers in place. That even has changed since I trained. But it's not, the level of job isn't there. Sorry, not the level of job, but the the quantity of jobs isn't there. So it wouldn't be fair for the colleges to spend 50% of your overall dance training on tap when it only represents 10% perhaps of the job market, which is unfortunate. And I'm tap biased, and I would adore for there to be all these wonderful tap musicals come back, and we do get resurgences, and they do exist, and they are there, but they do only represent a minority of the jobs. So I think that the easy route is to hold the colleges accountable for not giving more tap dance, and I would love that myself. But I think we've got to keep pushing tap more into the mainstream, make it less of a niche, so that then colleges have to address it more and have to up the level of training to match the job demand.
Of course, well, there's a catch-22, because you can't put on a dozen tap musicals if you aren't having the graduates that are able to take on the roles. And also, let's not forget, musicals aren't the only jobs for tap dancers. They're the majority of the jobs, but they're not the only jobs. And we really are starting to see people coming and creating work that is not 42nd Street or Singing in the Rain, as wonderful as those shows are. We've got Old Kent Road, we've got Huffers. Jack's other project is narrative led, Feet Keep Me Flying, and we're excited to see more of that stuff. But the thing that we really don't see so much anymore is the movie musical. So I want to lead on to my next question. We used to see shows like 42nd Street go from the stage to the screen, and the screen to the stage. There was a real connection and interplay there. We've lost that somewhere along the line, and I just was wondering, Ali, again, let's stay with you, if you can speak to that connection between movie musicals and West End and Broadway and touring shows, and whether there's room for some more movie musicals to come back, whether we can create jobs, because we can see that people are engaging online, are engaging in different media forms. What can we do to address that gap?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think movie musicals and dance jobs within films definitely do still exist. They're just obviously hugely different to how they used to be back in the sort of golden era that we think of, 30s, 40s, 50s. I think the main difference is back then, those specific films, your Fred and Jean films, they were dance driven, not narrative driven. So often the storylines were terrible if you look back at them. You know, it's just something cobbled together, and it's an excuse for a review, effectively, where there's all these, you know, wonderful dances, and actually that's the focus, and that's what people pay the money for. And I think just cinema has moved on since then, not necessarily for better or for worse, but a lot of things are narrative driven now. So there's jobs that create dance roles, something like La La Land that hired a lot of dancers, obviously, or even something like Rocket Man, the Elton John film recently. You know, they had a lot of dancers in it. They are story-led and story-driven films where the dancing becomes secondary. So there are still jobs there, but I suppose the dance isn't highlighted and shown off in the same way, or it's not given the same focus and attention. You know, in La La Land, you end up with actors dancing as opposed to dancers acting, which it was back in the day, right? Some of Fred Astaire's acting is questionable, but his dancing certainly wasn't. So it's just a flip on the focus of it, really. So if the question is how to address it, I'm not sure. The work is there, but I think just what people are after a change. I mean, I would love a massive renaissance to come back of these wonderful dancing films where the dance is the lead. Maybe it's with commercial dance coming in so much now. If you think of making a dance film recently, it's been sort of street dance or step up, or even all of the ballroom stuff off of Strictly so much. Maybe it just goes in cycles, and hopefully sometime soon we'll have a big old tap or musical theatre celebratory film. But yeah, I think we've gone more narrative these days, and the dancing plays second fiddle. Be that a good or a bad thing, obviously it's not good for dancers, but it's just a different focus, perhaps.
The tap dance could drive the narrative.
Oh, absolutely. And to clarify, obviously that's what I'm in favour of. I love work like that, and that's why things like Jack's project is really exciting. You know, let's push that to the mainstream and all of that stuff. It's brilliant. It's just, it seems now that everything is narrative and story and acting led, and there's been huge advances in acting in general, perhaps since the 30s, 40s and 50s. It just might have come at the detriment of the dance sometimes.
Great stuff. Harriet, did you want to keep going with that train of thought?
That train of thought. Yeah, no, I completely agree with Ali, and we've been talking quite a bit about this stage to screen, screen to stage stuff, and highlighting some of the shows that, for example, a lot went back and forth, but there's a huge chunk of shows that haven't been taken onto film. You know, just thinking, and Kirsty, when we were talking to Andrew about this, Andrew Black, about all these different kind of, he's like highlighting so many shows that haven't. Why are they not being made into films? You know, things like Shuffle Along, the latest revival, like there's and After Midnight that was on Broadway, like so many shows that you think, or the Bojangles film starring Gregory Hines that's being played around quite a lot at the moment, obviously for obvious reasons, like what Jelly's Last Jam, like some of these tap dancing musicals, you know, highlighting the point, well, why there's studio space, there's clearly money somewhere, why and I don't know the answer to this, but there is definitely there's talent out there, so I think that, you know, why are those things not being made into in shows and back and forth, and why are those shows not being made into film? I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I know I think Lin-Manuel Miranda's onto something. There's something special about what he's doing, because he's taken what he believes in and his roots, and he's making it happen. He's bringing it to Broadway. He's making a massive success of it. He's taking it onto film. So whatever it is that his kind of mixture, if you like, of his charisma and his creation and his intelligence, I guess, and his talent is obviously working and just hitting it right where it needs to from a commercial perspective to be successful. We perhaps just need maybe the tap industry needs a bit of that to a bit of someone like that, you know, when we had Gregory, you know, to do that, and we need another Gregory. Maybe that's
Great.
it.
If anyone knows a film producer, we've got some great ideas.
I think sorry, jumping in. Hey,
Please do.
but like producers and production companies are scared to do that. I think they're so nervous of taking on a full tap show, and we haven't broken it yet. Hopefully Jack Evans is that guy. He's halfway there. But like, I think maybe that might be a stepping stone. Maybe that's stopping.
Yeah.
So what Chloe and Maud have been working on, I mean, their thing for them, they've taken tap dance to commercial stages and in their style. And, you know, Chloe always talks about, she's like, I studied film because I realized I was going to have to do it myself. You know, and I think it just takes a bit of fight. And to be fair to her and her sister, they have done it. They've you know, and I think if you know film is the thing, well, go and study that. Yes, she's a tap dancer by trade, but actually she now knows how to hit that industry, and she's working so successfully in that industry and in TV. So, you know, there's a little bit of that, I guess, courage as well, if you've got that kind of, you know, fight to put it out there, because she's doing that, be it all on TV rather than film specifically. But yeah,
Great stuff. Kirsty, do you have anything to add?
I think you guys have done a great job, but it is very interesting. It comes in stages. We've got a whole list here of shows that were started as a film and later on was a musical, or again the flip way, like Harriet said, and it has gone in stages, and it reflects the time of what's happening in society along the time as well, and what's been acceptable. And I think something that is really upsetting to see, but is an important point to say, is that there's been lots of things that are not fairly represented, and particularly we see in the Hollywood movie musicals, it's all white people, whereas we're missing out a huge amount of people that people don't know. And we had a wonderful conversation with Lisa Latouche and her work with George Wolfe, and you just need the right people to pop up to be able to kind of be taken seriously to then move something forward. And I think I'm really excited how it's going to change, because there are some very, very amazing, powerful people that are going to be moving and are moving, and we're just not quite seeing it yet, but in the bigger scale, but where we are. But I think we're going to be seeing more of it, and I think that's really exciting, because I think we need to, it goes back to our roots, and as an art form we need to see that fairly represented. And yeah, so and we've been talking a lot about it depends on the time. So now we're in this time where people aren't going to spend as much money on theatre, and what that's going to look like. Are we going to see the movie musicals, the MGM type style that we see from films coming back? Maybe, because that's nostalgic. Maybe that's what people are going to want to, I don't know, and maybe that's what's going to sell. It's hard to know whether I think that's right or wrong. I don't know, but like it's kind of like what, especially in this time, it's going to be really interesting to see what comes out of this, and who can afford to move things forward, and therefore what we're going to see.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'm just going to go off book a little bit and touch on the intersection of race, which is obviously a huge part of the story. Tap dance is born of traditional dances of the African diaspora. It shares its roots with hip hop. It shares its roots with dancehall. And as you mentioned, we saw, you know, a lot of performance by Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire, and the masters who created this work were often people of color who were reduced to the help, the maid, the single character Uncle Tom role. And I'm just wondering, have we lost some of our performers of color? Has it become, in the UK, a white art form? Have we appropriated it? Do we have enough performers to pull off shows and musicals like that call for roles of color? you know, we see a lot of hip hop crews on TV. Maybe people have gone over towards that and are viewing tap dance as something different. Does anyone want to touch on those points? Because I think they're really important to talk about. Anyone want to jump in for me?
I'll jump in a little bit. I think there's some amazing people that are, it's just who, I think the talent's out there, but also maybe the opportunity. We need to, it is a money thing. Can people afford to go to a college to train or train to a high level? And that stops people from really having the opportunity sometimes. So I think that needs to be addressed. But I think there are plenty of people. It's just, are we talking about it enough? I think it's a thing that we're not talking about, and it's, I think it has to kind of start from the top, with people at the top and the decisions that are being made. But I think it is being talked about more, but I think we can open up the conversation more.
Great.
Yeah,
Sure.
just jumping in on that, I agree with Kirsty that it needs to come from the top down. I think it is starting to with generalizing the conversation now out into theatre in general. You know, more and more shows are being very careful that they're not whitewashed, for even if it comes just from a fear of bad press. You know, it doesn't matter. The point is that it is being achieved, to not whitewash any shows, you know, as it shouldn't be. And then perhaps, you know, once those roles are on stage, and generations are growing up seeing a more equal and diversified cast, then, you know, hopefully, I believe that once you have the end goal to visualize for anybody of, you know, any creed, gender, to see, then it will bleed through, hopefully, I believe, in the future. I agree that money is sometimes sets an unfair playing field, but yeah, hopefully, I think steps are being put in place now. You know, there's always BAME breakdowns going out, which is Black, Asian or minor ethnicities, to make sure that things are being equally represented, and people have to make sure they're ticking their diversity boxes when they put casts together, potentially. So hopefully it will bleed through. We're getting there, but yeah, we're certainly not quite there yet.
Yeah, great stuff. So representation matters is what we're saying, and hopefully we can figure out some ways to remove the barriers to participation, whether that is financial or otherwise. We are running real close to the end. Sorry, Del?
I just had a real quick thought about that. I think the
Yeah.
best that we can do as teachers, or people that are sharing with others, is to mention them. That's the most that we can do in the studio, is just to mention these people and highlight who they are, show a quick clip, like just do a little bit of research, maybe tell them who they learned from and who they're teaching now. And there's some incredible dancers around now that were taught by the masters, and you know, go find them, talk about them, and you're doing your bit just by mentioning them, just by saying who that person is. You've already ticked the box, and you didn't necessarily have to put on a massive show. You've already passed on like a
credit where it's due.
Yeah, exactly that.
Great stuff. All right. Well, I am going to skip a couple questions because we are nearly at the end of our hour. But I just want to talk again about the role of improvisation in training in the UK. We're starting to see it seep from the fringes. It's been around. Junior was fighting the good fight long before it was hitting musical theatre training. But we're starting to see those students that have been to Junior's class, been to the Tap Jam, and picked up improv from other places, teach it in their musical theatre training. I will never forget one of my third years from Bird seeing me after an audition a few years later and saying, someone asked me to improvise in a Singing in the Rain audition. I think it was Andrew Wright asked me to improvise in a Singing in the Rain audition. And no one ever taught me to improvise at Bird. And now they've got Jack, they've got Ryan, they've got people who put improv in. And I'm so mad that I didn't have them teach me improv. How can we teach improv? How can we teach improv is one thing. Can you speak to any way you do or don't use improv in your teaching and your training and your development of choreography? Adele, can we start with you?
I love improv, and I've had to grow to love it. And I think confidence comes first, is being able to let go of your let go basically of all feelings of that you have about having to try and get something right, having to be spot on. You have to let all of that go, and you have to try it and I think the important thing when you're teaching it is to create a safe place to let your students do that. And I think that is something that is definitely missing when it is being taught. Maybe some places, maybe just my experience of when I was doing it a few years ago, the atmosphere wasn't necessarily easy to relax in. But if you are in a classroom, jamming and improvising is very different to if you were having to do it, and it's called a cipher when it suddenly gets a little more serious, where you're kind of battling and you having to show your best. But then when you're in a classroom and you're teaching it, I think you have to let people grow, let them fall, explain what could have gone wrong, what's gone right, and bring them back up. So I think improv is very different. I'm not really sure where I'm going. I just wanted to say the word cipher, if I'm honest. So yes, I love teaching it in class. I enjoy the freedom. I enjoy seeing how other people interpret something that you've taught them, because some people are extremely musical but might not have all the wacky steps, but they can create something incredible with a cramp roll. And that inspires me so much, because I'm like, right, I need to take out, why am I trying to figure out a double wing on the left leg when this person can make a cramp roll sound great? I'm going to stick with a cramp roll. So like, I get very inspired by who is in the room and who is improvising. So that's also why I like to teach it. And also I just think, again, it's back to the roots. It's back to where it was. None of these masters that we speak about ever got taught the steps. They had to watch them dance once a week on Tuesday, probably at the Cotton Club. They had to steal a step. They took it home. They had to figure out what it was. They didn't film it, and they didn't practice it on the spot because they weren't allowed. They had to just remember it, take it home, make it theirs, come back and try and interpret it how they wanted it to, what they want it to be. And I think it's just bringing a little bit of that into the classroom as well.
Yeah, great stuff. Anyone else want to jump in?
I was going to pick up on your cipher. Oh, sorry, Kirst. And say exactly that. Like the challenge, it used to be a challenge thing. The roots of it were that it was fun. You know, trying to outdo each other. It was a game. It wasn't serious. It was just a fun. It was a fun.
Well, I think it was
serious. But it was no, in a game, in a way that, well, that ended up being your livelihood. So in that sense, it became serious. But I think it was this kind of competitive spirit. And I think saying again, like I said earlier about spoon feeding, we've got cameras, we've got everything. You have to do this and this and this to get this diploma, to get this degree, blah, blah, blah. There's not a lot the creative freedom necessarily within that. It's like, oh, I do this step like this to this rhythm, I pass. Is that right? So if I do that and I practice just that, then I'll pass, or then I'll do what I need to do. And we're so governed by those kind of tick boxes, I think, a lot just culturally, that weren't perhaps there and prescribed. And obviously they've got their good things. The good side to that is that we get better representation for everybody, and everyone, there's a level playing field through those things. But also we miss out sometimes that creativity. So and that freedom to make music. And I think for improv, in terms of teaching, I think it's about how when you walk into a studio and you walk into the room and you walk into class, that you're given the opportunity to this is what it is. We just exchange some thoughts, some ideas. We exchange some rhythmical things. That's what we do. That's what tap dancing is. Rather than going, I'm the teacher, I'm teaching you something, I'm the student, I'm standing there and I'm waiting for you to tell me what to do. I think that's a really important thing, that in a studio environment, we come in and we let the students know that that's what it is. It's what we do. We just share, like, hey, we're just going to play with the music, and this is what we're going to do. And by the way, I've created a little something that I want to teach you guys, rather than like, I pay you, you teach me. not that there's bad in that, there's good in that too, but do you know what I mean? I think sometimes it's too much of that sometimes can mean that we lose the creativity that improvisation really allows us to have. And I think it's really good to have a balance. And I would also say that so I think improv becomes scary because we're so prescribed a lot of the time, that all of a sudden then being able to think spontaneously feels way over here in discomfort zone. And actually it's not that uncomfortable. And I know where I've gotten the most out of improvising is where I've been guided. So it's not like, hey, go. It's let's take Toes and Heels. Let's take let's take this musical idea. You say hello to this person and they'll respond back. You know, creating ways for us to have fun with expressing ourselves. That's not just a kind of like, you know, tell me everything that's going on in your head right now. You know, so I think those from a practical perspective in a studio, guiding improvisation without necessarily realizing that students are realizing that they're improvising, I think is also quite helpful.
I think it's really, just broad, like kind of growing on that, is that tap dance was a language. It was how people communicated with each other. And I think it's important to highlight that when you're improvising as well. So if someone says to you, heel ball, why do you don't have to do anything crazy back, because you're just having a conversation. You can call and respond that back and build it from there, so you feel comfortable. But it's a language, and I feel like as soon as someone told me you're just talking, I felt so calmer about it, because it suddenly took away the steps for me. You were just having a chat, and it made me feel very calm.
I really like that, Adele, that you said that. It's like it's suddenly a change of perspective or something. I think improvisation naturally has quite a scary aspect to it. And I think if we're going back to performing arts colleges, a lot of the time people are in survival mode. So they're in, I just must get this done. What's my teacher going to say? Maybe they're going to tell the principal, and then maybe I'm not going to get an agent, and then maybe that's going to mean I can't get a job. It's like this survival fear mentality. Whereas if like these teachers can just go, oh, can I just change your perspective and let you just see it in a different way, and can I just say it's okay to make mistakes, and how about trying this? And I'm really excited to see, and if me personally, but also for all our students, is having this time away where they're not they are on their own and they're able to make mistakes without people seeing them. I think it's going to be huge for people to own them and take responsibility and own themselves. And be okay with that, and be able to play and be playful, because the stakes are down. No one's watching them, and they're just able to play. And I think we need more playing in class and in life and in theatre, because I think it can get really serious and fearful at times, and I think that stops play altogether.
I love that. Play is so important to creativity. Sorry, was someone going to jump in there?
I had rehearsals with Derek the other day, and he was saying, use this time to appreciate your own dancing. So fall in love with how you dance, and fall in love with like your creative process.
Great stuff. Ali, anything to round us up with?
I think these guys have nailed it, really. I'm not going to waffle for the sake of waffling. I really do think that they've covered the boxes there.
Perfect. All right. Well, I want to make sure that everybody who is taking class this afternoon has plenty of time to get themselves ready. I'm going to finish us off with a quick fire round of questions, and then I will bid you adieu and let you go. But do remember that these recordings are all going to be available, so if you wanted to catch another panel while this one was on, you can have access to the other panels that are happening at the same time. Some really interesting stuff going on, and hopefully we'll see many, if not all of you, for class this afternoon and for the gala this evening. All right, quick fire round. Harriet, improv or choreo?
Improv.
Kirsty, stage or screen?
Stage.
Ali, Kelly or a stare?
Got a stare.
Adele, 42nd Street or Singing in the Rain?
Singing in the Rain.
Ooh. Ali, jazz music or musical soundtrack?
Jazz.
Ooh. Adele, Nicholas Brothers or Condos Brothers?
Nicholas Brothers.
Kirsty, Ann Miller or Eleanor Powell?
Eleanor Powell.
Harriet, heels or flats?
Oh, flats. Oh, sorry, I feel like I've offended one half of myself.
Great stuff. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Thank you again to my panelists, Harriet, Kirsty, Adele, and Alistair. You guys have been fantastic, so educational, so insightful to listen to, as always. And we are excited to continue learning from you. And happy International Tap Dance Day, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you, Jen.
All right.
Good work
You're
today.
welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
Well done.
Bye.
Is there, Jen, literally 30 seconds. Brooklyn said, is there anywhere in the UK that regularly offers dancers the opportunity to improv for extended periods of time? Has anyone shout out anything for 20 seconds? We've got Tap Jam Nottingham, Tap Rhythm Project. Anything else to shout out for Brooklyn? Opportunities for dancers?
Soul Rebel do a jam in Liverpool sometimes.
Nice.
Let's make more.
Yeah, we should make more.
Yes, we should make more. Adele sometimes does one in Leigh-on-Sea.
Yeah, Adele's Jam. Just making sure
and at the moment, online, take advantage of the London Tap Jam. Follow them on Instagram. They're doing improv stuff every couple of weeks.
And Barbara Duffy's book, I know it's not a thing, but just her book about improvisation, Brooklyn, is great as well.
Yes. Oh, I'm going to do a shameless self-plug of the Tap Dance UK website. There are links to various books on there if you go onto the resources tab. There's also AC Gray's book and some other interesting stuff. And while we're on lockdown...
This is great.
There you go, Tap Dancing in America, so many great books. But while we're on lockdown, please take advantage of the chance to train with international teachers. Derek, Grant, and who's doing the jam? They're doing quite a regular jam, Adele.
Yeah, it's Domisha, Jason, and Derek. So they host a jam. But there's also this incredible lady called Karen Calloway Williams that goes. She was part of like Riverdance, and she got to know some of the cast from Black and Blue because she was part of that college where they were rehearsing. And she is literally a time capsule. In her studio, she has all of these posters and newspaper clippings and signatures, everything about every single dancer you could ever think of. And she has the originals and the only things in the world that holds all of that. She's the only person, and it's incredible. So sometimes they stop for half an hour and she just like gets all these posters out, but it's great. You'll see some things you would never even know about.
Great, I didn't know about that either.
Karen Calloway
Williams.
Calloway.
I've just popped it in the group. It's in the chat for anyone that needs it.
We're doing a lot of this kind of stuff, research with our tap and tea sessions as well. Just a little
Yes.
That's starting next week. We've got a new session. There's a lot of kind of research and resources stuff that's coming out through that too, which is really great.
Yeah, sure. If anyone wants to drop an email to contact@tapdanceuk.com, we'll try and collate some recommendations from our faculty to send it out to you. It will not be today, probably won't be tomorrow, but we'll endeavour to do that for you. Some artists in Australia, but especially in America, it's the home, and they're doing some incredible stuff online that you can have access to, and you wouldn't be able to get without spending a lot of money on a flight and accommodation and training. So really, yeah, take advantage of that. Anything else that I've missed, guys?
Oh, one more question.
Stephen says, would that come out with the recordings of these classes? There's not a specific time frame.
Send me an email to remind me, and I will do what I can to collate a bit of information for you. contact@tapdanceuk.com, or you can go to tapdanceuk.com and there's a contact us form. So just put Jenny said. She would give us some info on people to follow. Let's just shout out some names real quick.
What?
3 more minutes. People to follow on Instagram or Facebook, or your people to
Star Dixon.
Say again? Star
Right.
Dixon.
Heather Cornell.
Michelle Dorrance.
Brill Barrett. That family reunion.
Why can we not think of anyone?
Boys.
Gary Grimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jared Grimes.
Yeah, you could do that little challenge, little TikTok challenge. I tried it the other day. I do not look cool enough for that.
Caleb Tiger,
Yeah, his cool. Yeah, his thing. Yeah.
Yeah, Caleb's a good shout.
Yes.
And Nathan James is doing a lot about musical and theatre type, lots of footage.
Oh, yeah.
on his
American
Facebook
Tap
page.
Dance Foundation. Follow the American Tap Dance Foundation.
Yeah. Of course, Sarah Reich, she is doing like every day she does this half an hour shed on Instagram Live, and you just watch her basically practicing in her flat, and it is the best energy for half an hour, and it will inspire you to at least do a shuffle. It is really, really
Yeah. She's on @Sour Taps.
Mm.
Yeah.
Um,
We'll make sure that we collate some of this and send it out as well.
Yeah.
Along with the
Vancouver Tap Fest do a lot of stuff. And there's this great guy called Thomas. He's based in Canada, and he's been doing this quiz of do you know the link? And he posts maybe about 15 seconds of a certain clip, and you have to guess whose clip it is. So you also learn new clips, because obviously they tell you what it is afterwards. And also you just get to see if you know rhythms of certain tap dancers. It's great. I'll put the name in the group.
Jason Samuel Smith.
In classes too. Yeah, Operation Tap. Yes.
Jason Dennis.
Ayadeli. Yeah, Heather Cornell's doing some stuff. She's really opening up her archives, which is really cool because she's very she's just great. But she's opening up some stuff, which is kind of cool.
On Sundays, she has lots of footage of the masses.
Brenda Buffino is also giving out free advice. If you want to send her videos of you dancing, she will then give you feedback.
Nice. Josh Hilberman.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good one.
Some more of the folks in Europe too. Who run the festivals and stuff.
The bros, Manuel and Leonardo, are doing quite a lot. Yeah, Sandra is really great. Good shout for that.
All right, I'm going to call it now, so that everyone's got time to grab a drink, put their shoes on, use a bathroom, etc.
Yes.
But thank you all so much for joining us. What a fantastic panel. Please join me in thanking silently our panelists one more time: Adele, Alistair, Harriet and Kirsty. Sorry, I didn't forget your names. I just started reading the comments that were popping up on the screen. Thank you so much, and we will see you at 3:30 for classes. And at the gala this evening, I'm really excited. We've got some fantastic performances, loads of brand new, never before seen footage. Thank you for joining us, everyone, and we'll see you later.
Thank you.
Thanks, all. Thank you so much.
To see you all.
Thank you.
Christopher. Is everyone good? What are you doing me?